What's up everyone and welcome. In this episode we're going to talk about the Mitre Top 25 Vulnerabilities list for 2021.
Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
Mitre Corporation recently updated its list of the top 25 most dangerous software bugs, and it's a little surprised that a number of them have been on the list for years. The Common Weakness Enumeration list, or CWE, represents vulnerabilities that have been widely known for years, yet are still being coded into software and being bypassed by testing. Both developers and testers presumably know better by now, but still keep making the same mistakes in building applications. We'll review the vulnerabilities that seem to consistently make the top 25 list over the years, but first, how do these mistakes come about? There are a variety of reasons. In many cases, developers simply don't have security at the tops of their minds as they are coding the application. Their primary goal is to get the business logic right. In cases where a particular algorithm doesn't seem to be working right, developers have been known to turn off security restrictions until it behaves as expected. Developers lose face when their application has a logic bug, but not when there is a potential security vulnerability because these are largely hidden until they are exploited. Testers have a more direct responsibility for ensuring applications are secure, but usually have limited tools and expertise for doing so. They're almost always testing code in isolation, often with no database, APIs, or network. Without a way to look into memory or create illegal commands and interpret the results in terms of an attack, they are limited in their ability to identify security vulnerabilities. There is also still the overriding perception within technical groups that security is the responsibility of the IT production group, not necessarily of the developers. After all, IT has significant tooling to define and manage an application and network perimeter, such as firewalls and anti-malware. Well, those are designed to protect the entire infrastructure. The focus on security in production often means that there is less of a focus in development and testing. It's all part of a culture where security vulnerabilities are largely hidden from view because they typically don't affect the function of the application until, that is, an attack succeeds and systems or data are lost. While it would be most effective to focus attention on security during the entire application lifecycle, it is still critical to be vigilant in production. Looking at the specifics from Mitre, the major difference between 2020 and the 2021 CWE Top 25 list is the continued transition to more specific weaknesses as opposed to abstract class-level weaknesses. A preliminary estimate suggests that the percentage of base-level CWEs has increased from roughly 60% to roughly 71% of all Top 25 entries, and the percentage of class-level CWEs has decreased from 30% to 20% of entries. Other weakness levels like category, compound, and variant remain relatively unchanged. With the relative decline of class-level weaknesses, more specific CWEs have moved up to take the place of these high-level classes, such as CWE 78, improper neutralization of special elements used in an operating system command, or OS Command Injection. There's CWE 2022, improper limitation of a path name to a restricted directory, which is path traversal. CWE 434, unrestricted upload of file with dangerous type. CWE 306, missing authentication for critical function. CWE 502, deserialization of untrusted data. CWE 862, missing authorization, and CWE 276, incorrect default permissions. The biggest movement up this list was CWE 276, which is incorrect default permissions, moved from number 41 to number 19. CWE 306, missing authentication for critical function, moved from number 24 to number 11. CWE 502, deserialization of untrusted data, moved from number 21 to number 13. CWE 862, missing authorization, moved from number 25 to number 18. CWE 77, improper neutralization of special elements used in a command or command injection, moved from number 31 to number 25. Now, most of these weaknesses represent some of the most difficult areas to analyze the system on. A theory about this movement is that the community has improved its education, its tooling, and its analysis capabilities related to some of the more implementation-specific weaknesses identified in previous editions of the CWE Top 25. Therefore, they have reduced their occurrence. Now, this would lower their ranking, in turn raising the ranking of these more difficult weaknesses. New entries in the top 25 include CWE276 incorrect default permissions, which again moved from number 41 to number 19. CW918 server-side request forgery, or SSRF, moved from number 27 to number 24. Not a huge jump, but still, it made it into the top 25. CWE77, improper neutralization of special elements used in a command or command injection, again moved from number 31 to number 25. Now let's talk about the most pervasive vulnerabilities that continue to appear year after year in the list to get a better understanding of their implications. We start off with buffer memory overruns or overflows. Manipulating memory remains one of the most popular ways of attacking a system. If an attacker is in the possession of a specific memory address within an executable application, he can use it to enter values or commands that exceed the size of that memory space. Once outside of the memory space, attackers can insert executable software, making it possible to take over a computer or raise permission levels. We move on to CrossSite Scripting, or XSS. Attackers can use web features in order to plant malicious scripts. In this case, attackers can upload scripts into unprotected client-side web pages to be executed when others open that page. Protecting against this involves prohibiting web applications from downloading files, and many developers neglect to add this restriction.
Now I've got you.
Many development teams continue to let attackers download scripts onto third-party websites, and testers have a difficult time identifying this type of attack because it's not clear where the malicious scripts are coming from. The result is that those users innocently visiting those web pages may inadvertently and unknowingly download malware onto their systems. SQL Command Injection is another one. Many developers focus on making sure an application returns the desired result above all else. In some applications, one common way of doing this is to give all user queries administrative access to the database. While that often works, it has consequences. First, it opens up database administrative access to any application user. That means anyone who uses the application can use SQL commands to modify the database. Using SQL escape characters, attackers can enter SQL commands into the web interface and have them executed by the database. Second, it keeps the database connection open for all. It's never logged out after each individual use. That means that you don't have to be an authorized user to find an open database. That makes the integrity of your data questionable on an ongoing basis. Use after free. There's another memory manipulation trick. When an application needs memory for a variable, it either programmatically allocates that memory or the underlying platform, JVM or .NET runtime. When the application is done with that memory, either it or the platform returns it to the free memory list. If an attacker has managed to get the memory address, he can gain access to the free memory list and insert malicious software into free memory. Next time that memory is allocated, it is allocated with a payload that can cause harm. Further, the memory isn't wiped clean when it is returned to the free memory list, enabling attackers to read the contents of that memory. There are some commercial debuggers that are able to look into a running process and let programmers or attackers obtain information using memory locations. While these types of debuggers are needed, any tool that lets attackers look into specific memory addresses to determine their contents has the potential to be used as a hacking tool. So folks, what did we learn? Well, there's still a bunch of sometimes shortcuts, sometimes lack of knowledge mistakes that have been made for the last decade or so that continue to show up in these types of security software vulnerability lists. You may have seen my episode about the top attacks from OWASP, or top vulnerabilities list from OWASP. Well, this goes along that same lines. The Mitre list shows the top 25 vulnerabilities and weaknesses within software on the market today in 2021, and what I've just shown you are a significant number of those that are very dangerous within our application. So what do we need to do? We need to improve our testing and testing documentation and test cases. We need to try to work in more advanced testing to allow the testers to find cross-site scripting, SQL injection vulnerabilities within our applications and within our software. We need to spread the responsibility of security first principles not just in the IT production team, firewalls, anti-malware, etc., 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 but also in the core development to ensure that the code itself is not vulnerable. If somebody happens to make it past the firewall or SSH access, or be able to speak directly to your application, and your application has a vulnerability, they will be able to take advantage of it and infect your system, steal data, install ransomware, you name it. So, with that, I say thanks again for watching. Don't forget to share. And if you haven't already, subscribe. And if you haven't already, smash the bell. And I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.